This post is going to be covering a topic that I've been wanting to cover for a while, and that is explaining and breaking down and really diving into the difference between energy currents and archetypes. And what I mean by that is a lot of people will deal with a certain spirit or a certain god or goddess or angel or demon or elemental, and this energy will have a similar energy to a different named energy current or being in another culture. And people will tend to lump these energies together as though they are the same energy or the same being, because they'll look at things like, okay, for example, crossroad archetypes will tend to have colors of black and red and white. They will tend to deal with the numbers 3 and 4. They will tend to have images of keys and serpents and dogs. They will tend to know various different languages and be able to write in various different languages. But that does not mean that they are the same exact energy. What it can mean is that they share a similar archetype. Let me use this for an example. In the Voodoo and Voodoo tradition, you have Papa Legba, who was originally Legba from the Dahomey people in Benin before the transatlantic slave trade, whereby he traveled to Haiti and traveled to Louisiana area. Now, each one of these variations is different. So Legba in Benin is similar to the Legba in Haiti and is similar to the Legba in Louisiana, but they're all slightly different. However, they're the same energy. They've just gone through different cultural changes. That's different than comparing, and they even have the same name. That's different than comparing Legba to Elegua, which there is some cultural crossover between the Dahomey people or the Fon, otherwise known as the Fon people, and the Yoruba, but they are two different tribes. So they might have traded with each other, they might have had different cultural exchanges, but they're two different tribes. However, there is some crossover. Both Legba and Elegua have the same colors. They both represent crossroad energy. They both deal with divination to a degree. They both have the cowrie shell involved. They both deal with the same numbers. But these particular energies are separate because they come from different cultures. So yes, there are times that we can trace an actual energy and say, okay, this energy started out here. It went here, it went through some changes, and it went here and it went through some changes. Okay, that's one thing. But when an energy began in one culture, and because another culture has a similar energy, but they have two totally different names and two totally different traditions, that's not the same energy. That's the same archetype. These are two totally different tribes. Is there crossover between the child Legba of Mawalisa and Elegua? Absolutely. But are they the same being? No. So I'm just using that as an example. Or let's extend that out to say we have Papa Legba and then we have Mother Hecate or Hecate, depending on your pronunciation. They're both crossroad energies, right? One is a goddess, one is a Loa, right? And they both have the same colors. They both have the same numbers. They both deal with crossroads. Now, one distinction I will draw is that Hecate tends to deal more with the 3-point crossroads, and Legba tends to deal more with the 4-point crossroads, but they both have 3 as their number. They both have the same colors. They both are the keepers of crossroads, and they both open the doors. But are they the same being? No. two totally different cultures. One is Persian Anatolian, which later got adopted by the Greeks, and we can trace that. See, that's what I mean. The difference between when a spirit has gone through a change because the culture has gone through changes versus two different beings from two different cultures that existed side by side, or maybe different timelines, different countries, different peoples, but we're lumping them together because they have similar purposes. That's an archetype. Let's look at Venus. We're just going to jump ahead here, right? Venus is also known as Lucifer, the morning star, because it was known as the morning star and sometimes even the evening star by ancient astronomers and astrologers. So we can't say that, for example, the goddess Venus in Rome, the goddess Aphrodite in Greece, the goddess Ishtar in Babylon, and goddess Isis from Egypt or Kemet are all the same. They're the same archetype. They're all based on the same planetary energy, but they're different cultural stories. So it may seem like, okay, well, we know they're all talking about Venus, so they're all the same. No, they're not all the same. And you can have different beings associated with one planetary body. You can have different energy currents associated with one particular archetype. It doesn't mean that they're all the same energy, because they all have different origin stories. They all have different cultures. They all have different tales. Here's another one. We can prove that Maman Brigitte in Voodoo, right, started out as the goddess Brigitte. Later became Saint Brigitte, because we can say Brigitte, Brigitte, they're all the same type of energy, right? Because we can actually follow the history. We can follow it to say, oh, this really is the same energy that's gone through changes, like Leba going through changes during the transatlantic slave trade. We can actually trace this and say, yeah, we know for a fact that when there were Irish indentured servants that were brought into Africa, which that did happen, and were brought into Haiti, right? Were brought into these different regions, that they mixed, and not just there, but also in Louisiana as well, that they mixed cultural traditions, because you had the Irish indentured servants, and they weren't much higher up in the social hierarchy than the people from Africa and the islands that were put in slavery during the transatlantic slave trade. So both of these peoples were, in an oppressive state. So they actually had a lot of cultural fusion going on, a lot more than people realize. And so it has actually been documented that that is how the goddess Brigitte made her transition into the voodoo culture. Some go as far as to say that she is actually the only white Loa, because they look at her as being originally white and red hair. I actually don't share that view. I actually share, from what I've seen in the Akashic records, she actually has like a reddy red bone complexion. She has, so-called Negro features. She has green eyes and she has a red afro. That's how I've seen her. But again, that's my interpretation based on my experience and my Akashic records. But the point is that we can actually trace. We know that it was from the Irish people carrying her into this tradition, from the mixing of that cultural fusion. We know that's where Saint Bridget came from. Saint Bridget was originally a goddess. Maman Brigitte was originally a goddess. These are different epithets or expressions of the same energy. Just like Leba, the child, the energy of divination, the son of Mawulisa, became Papa Leba, part of the family of the, Leba family, or the family of the crossroads, and then became Papa Leba, the trickster spirit, and the Loa of the crossroads. So to say that, for example, Maman Brigitte is the same energy as Lilith, for example, or the same energy as, Oya, totally different energies. Actually, here's what's kind of interesting. Lilith is actually a storm spirit. She started out a storm spirit before she became known as a demon, as the queen of, demons, as the queen of vampires. Like, she was actually known, oh, and succubus, like she was known as a storm spirit before she was all this. So honestly, she has more in common with Oya being a storm energy than Oya and Maman Brigitte have in common, or Maman Brigitte and Lilith. But Lilith and Oya, two totally different cultures, two totally different energies. You know, one is an Orisha and one is a demon. Just because we have similar energies, let me give you another one. Shango and Thor. Just because they both have hammers and lightning doesn't mean they're the same energy. They're the same archetype, not the same energy. I went through an initiation process and I work with a few of the Loa at that level, at that personal initiation level. I work with two different demons who chose to work with me, and I work with one goddess on a regular basis and sometimes 3 goddesses total. I also work with dragons. Do I work with all these beings the same way? No, I honor them according to their traditions. I honor them according to the practices that they are derived from. So I don't mix and match. Even though I work with them all, I don't mix and match the traditions. I don't, for example, combine working with, Mother Hecate when I work with Papa Leba just because they're both crossword spirits and both have, certain overlaps. I don't do that. It's important to know the proper history, the proper context, the proper application. And like I said, it's okay to draw correlations and say, hey, these energies are from the same archetype, but they're not the same energies. They're different. So I just wanted to do a quick video on this. I hope that it resonated. I hope it helped. Definitely take what resonates and leave the rest. I will definitely be doing a video that's a follow-up to this. It's not really a part 2, but it's semi-related, and that is how archetypal events are created through mass belief and mass hysteria. So that's going to be up next, more than likely, guys. They're coming up very soon. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Take care. Check out my website, thetantricdragoness.com, to book a private akashic reading or any other reading. Also akashic portraits, consultations, shamanic journeys, starseed charts, primordial dragon fire healing, and much more. You can also subscribe to Patreon to learn how to do a lot of this yourself through various templates I've designed. Activate Diamond Consciousness, Activate the Black Flame, Journey the Underworld, Tantric Healing and BDSM, Astral Projection and Power, Shields, Cloaks, Wards, Learning Light Language, Exclusive and Premier Readings, Soul Fragment Retrieval, Advanced Ancestral Work, Creating Your Own Shamanic Sanctuary, and much more. Thanks for your support, and stay tuned for future videos.